You've been lied to your whole life about how to control your thoughts. Every self-help guru out there wants to sell you the idea of mastering your mind by shutting it down, silencing the noise, and forcing peace into existence. But let me break it to you. The harder you try to stop your thoughts, the more they fight back. That's just how the mind works. It's not some rogue beast you can tame by sheer willpower. Instead, true mastery lies in understanding that thoughts will always be there, flowing like an unstoppable river. The secret? Stop trying to build a dam and learn to observe the current instead. Most people spend their lives wrestling with their minds, convinced that control equals peace. But this illusion only creates tension and frustration. You've probably tried it, sitting in silence, hoping to shut down the mental chaos, only to find it getting louder and more chaotic. That's because the mind feeds on resistance. The moment you decide to force it into submission, it rebels even harder. The real power comes when you realize that you don't have to fight it at all. Instead of pushing back, you simply let it flow, like standing in the eye of a storm while the winds rage around you. What if I told you that the key to inner peace isn't controlling your thoughts, but observing them without attachment? It sounds counterintuitive, right? Yet, this simple shift changes everything. Imagine being able to watch your thoughts dance around without feeling trapped by them. Like watching a movie without getting sucked into the plot. It's about embracing the nature of your mind rather than resisting it. This mindset doesn't just quiet your mental chatter, it frees you from identifying with it. Once you grasp this, you unlock a deeper level of clarity and presence. So, how do you break free from the illusion of control and discover true peace? It starts with shifting your perspective, from controlling thoughts to witnessing them. You'll find that your mind becomes less noisy when it's not under constant pressure to be silent. It's like letting a bird fly free rather than keeping it caged. When you release the need to dominate your own mind, it naturally finds its balance. This approach doesn't just ease mental tension, it revolutionizes how you experience reality. By the end of this journey, you'll know how to move beyond the struggle, let go of the need to control, and embrace the simplicity of pure awareness. You'll learn how to master your mind without attachment and experience moments of profound stillness, even in the midst of thought. It's not about shutting down your mental flow, but flowing with it, unbothered and unbound. Ready to see your mind from a whole new perspective? Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The Mind as an Illusion. Understanding its nature. The mind is a restless beast, constantly weaving thoughts that blur into one continuous stream. But here's the truth. The mind isn't a fixed entity. It's a process, a relentless flow of thoughts and impressions that give the illusion of stability. When you stop and really observe, you'll see that thoughts flicker and vanish like shadows dancing on a wall. It's fascinating how they seem to hold power until you question their nature. You're not your thoughts, you're the awareness behind them. Let that sink in for a moment. The more you witness this process, the more you realize that the mind itself is just a construct, not the core of who you are. Most people cling to their thoughts as if they're solid truths, but they're not. Thoughts move so fast that they create a sense of continuity, an illusion that there's a constant self behind them. Imagine watching a river flow. You wouldn't mistake the river for a single drop of water, yet we often do that with thoughts, assuming they define us. But thoughts are fleeting. They arise, change shape, and dissolve just as quickly. The mind's trick is convincing you that they're permanent, and that's where suffering begins. Awareness breaks that illusion and reveals a deeper clarity beneath the chaos. Have you ever noticed how thoughts seem to chase one another, creating stories that feel so real you can't help but believe them? That's the illusion in action. It's like watching a film and getting so immersed that you forget it's just a projection. The mind projects scenarios, opinions, fears, and hopes onto the canvas of your consciousness, and you get caught up in the drama. But the moment you realize it's just a mental movie, everything shifts. You become the observer rather than the actor lost in the plot. That's the first step toward reclaiming your presence. In practical terms, start by paying attention to your thoughts without getting involved. Meditation helps with this. Just sit and observe whatever comes up. Don't judge it or label it. Just watch. Over time, you'll notice gaps between thoughts, moments of stillness where the mind pauses. Those are glimpses of your true nature, still, aware, untouched by the mental noise. Try it for a few minutes each day and see how it changes your relationship with your mind. The key is not to force silence, but to allow it to emerge naturally as you become less attached to each thought. When you truly grasp the illusion of a mind, you realize that chasing thoughts is like chasing shadows. They're intangible, constantly shifting. Instead of fighting the mind, learn to dance with it. Let thoughts come and go, knowing they don't define you. The mind dissolves when seen for what it truly is, an endless flow of impressions, not a concrete identity. Mastering this realization means not getting swept away by every thought that arises, but rather allowing them to pass through, like clouds drifting across the sky. And once you embrace this, you'll start to sense the power of simply witnessing, without attachment or judgment. Chapter 2. The Observer and the Power of Witnessing. The most profound realization you can have is that you are not your thoughts. You are the observer, the silent witness that watches thoughts come and go without being pulled into their drama. It's like sitting on a park bench, watching people pass by. Some are loud, some are quiet, some seem important, and others don't even catch your attention. Yet, none of them are you. Your thoughts are no different. They march through your mind, each demanding your attention, but you remain unchanged as the observer. It's liberating when you finally understand that thoughts are just mental visitors, not permanent residents. Think about how often you get caught up in your thoughts, treating them as absolute truths. You may find yourself stuck replaying past mistakes or worrying about the future as if your life depended on it. But take a step back and just watch. Notice how thoughts rise and fall, almost as if they have a life of their own. This simple act of witnessing dissolves their grip on you. It's like being in a storm but standing under a solid shelter, safe, unbothered, and completely present. The storm rages on, but it doesn't touch you. True freedom doesn't come from controlling your thoughts. It comes from allowing them to move naturally, without resistance. You can't force a river to stop flowing, but you can choose not to jump in and be carried away by its current. It's the same with your mind. Instead of trying to suppress thoughts or silence them through sheer willpower, practice witnessing them without attachment. Let them unfold and fade naturally. Mastery over the mind isn't about blocking thoughts, but about letting them arise and vanish while you remain anchored in your own awareness. One practical way to cultivate this mindset is through mindfulness meditation. Sit comfortably, close your eyes, and let your thoughts come and go. Don't judge them or analyze them, just notice them. It's like watching clouds drift across the sky. Some are dark and heavy, others light and wispy. Yet none of them affect the sky itself. You are that sky, vast, spacious, untouched by the fleeting nature of thoughts. With practice, you'll find that your attachment to mental chatter lessens and your inner peace deepens. The real power of witnessing lies in the way it breaks the illusion of control. When you understand that you're not responsible for every thought that crosses your mind, you free yourself from the burden of constant self-judgment. The observer doesn't judge, it simply sees. This perspective shifts your entire approach to life, allowing you to move through challenges without being weighed down by mental narratives. As you become more skilled at witnessing, you'll notice a subtle transformation, a deeper sense of presence, and a lighter, more fluid state of being. And as this awareness grows, the illusion of control begins to unravel, revealing a deeper truth. Chapter 3: The Illusion of Control and the Futility of Trying to Stop Thought. One of the biggest traps we fall into is the illusion that we can control our thoughts. We think that with enough effort, we can silence the mind and create a state of perpetual peace. But the truth is, the mind has a life of its own. It's like trying to hold back the ocean with your bare hands. No matter how hard you try, the waves keep coming. The more you push against your thoughts, the more resistance you create. It's a futile battle, and the real power lies not in suppressing thoughts, but in allowing them to flow without interference. Have you ever tried to force yourself to stop thinking? The irony is that the harder you try, the louder your thoughts become. It's like telling yourself not to think of a pink elephant. Suddenly, that's all you can imagine. This happens because resistance feeds the mind's activity, amplifying whatever you're trying to suppress. Instead of fighting the mind, practice observing it without attachment. Notice how thoughts appear and disappear on their own, without your control. Let them dance around without reacting or engaging, and soon you'll notice they lose their intensity. The secret to real peace is not fighting against your thoughts, but letting them unfold naturally. It's about stepping back and becoming an observer rather than a participant in the mental chaos. You'll realize that thoughts don't need your involvement to come and go. They're perfectly capable of doing that on their own. Just like waves crashing on the shore, they rise and fall without your intervention. This realization takes away the pressure to control your mind and allows you to coexist with your thoughts without being overwhelmed by them. In practice, try something simple next time your mind feels chaotic. Sit quietly and say to yourself, "Let it be." Allow whatever thoughts arise to exist without judgment or resistance. Don't analyze or dissect them. Just let them pass like cars on a busy street. You don't chase after each car, do you? Treat your thoughts the same way. When you let go of the need to control, you'll notice a natural calm settling in. It's not about making the mind quiet, but about being at peace regardless of its noise. The futility of trying to stop thoughts becomes clear when you see how effortlessly they emerge from the subconscious. They're like echoes from past experiences and accumulated perceptions, just doing their thing. The real mastery isn't in silencing the mind, but in being okay with its noise. You don't need to win a war against your thoughts because the battle itself is an illusion. By embracing this understanding, you'll begin to experience a deeper tranquility, one that doesn't depend on external silence, but on your inner detachment. And in that space, something incredible happens. The gaps between thoughts start to widen, revealing a glimpse of pure presence. Chapter 4: The Space Between Thoughts, Discovering No Mind. There's something profoundly beautiful about the silence that exists between thoughts. It's subtle, almost imperceptible, but it's there like the quiet between musical notes that gives melody its depth. This space, this gap between thoughts, is where true clarity resides. It's not something you can force or create. It naturally arises when the mind loosens its grip. The challenge is not in finding it, but in allowing it to reveal itself. When you become the observer and let thoughts come and go without attachment, these moments of stillness begin to emerge on their own, like a calm clearing in the middle of a dense forest. Most people are so absorbed in their thoughts that they never notice these gaps. They're too busy clinging to one idea after another, convinced that the mind must always be active. But that's just the illusion of continuity, the mind's desperate attempt to maintain its identity. When you stop chasing thoughts and simply watch them, you'll notice that they don't form a solid chain. Instead, they arise and fade, leaving tiny pockets of silence in between. Those pockets are like windows into your true self, moments of pure awareness without interference. Practicing this kind of witnessing doesn't require any elaborate technique. Just sit quietly, let your thoughts unfold naturally, and pay attention to the brief pauses between them. It might feel strange at first, like your mind is trying to fill the silence with noise, but don't force anything. Just let it be. Over time, you'll notice that these spaces become more frequent and more profound. It's like the mind gradually learns to step aside, revealing the stillness that was always there, but went unnoticed amid the mental chatter. Think of it like listening to music. The silence between notes gives the melody its rhythm and soul. If there were no gaps, it would be nothing but noise, an unending barrage of sound with no structure or harmony. Your mind works the same way. It needs space to breathe, to find balance. Those fleeting moments of no mind are where your true nature shines through. Free from thoughts, free from identity, free from struggle. Embrace them when they come, and don't try to hold on to them. They're like glimpses of eternity, reminding you of the peace that exists beyond the mind's endless storytelling. As you deepen your practice of allowing thoughts to pass without interference, the spaces between them naturally expand. You start to experience longer stretches of silence, and in that silence, a sense of profound tranquility arises. It's not something you can manufacture or control. It's the byproduct of letting go. The more you immerse yourself in witnessing, the more the mind quiets down on its own. And within that spaciousness, you'll discover the essence of presence, a calm awareness that doesn't need thoughts to define it. This is the doorway to experiencing no mind, where thought and silence coexist without conflict. Chapter 5. The Final Realization. Mastering the Mind Without Attachment. Mastering the mind isn't about silencing it or crushing its flow. It's about understanding its nature and allowing it to function without dominating your sense of self. The mind is a tool, an incredible one, no doubt, but it's not the master. The problem arises when thoughts take over and define your reality, convincing you that you are them. Real mastery comes from using the mind when needed and letting it rest when not. It's like picking up a tool when the job requires it and putting it down when the task is complete. The trick is to never let the tool control you. Imagine carrying a heavy backpack all day, even when you're not traveling. That's what it's like to constantly engage with your thoughts. You're weighed down by mental noise that doesn't serve your current purpose. Mastering the mind means learning to set down that backpack when it's unnecessary, relieving yourself of the burden of constant thinking. This doesn't mean thoughts cease to exist, but rather that they no longer dominate your awareness. They arise and dissolve like waves, leaving your inner stillness untouched. It's not about fighting the mind, but harmonizing with it. One practical way to embody this mindset is through conscious engagement. The next time your thoughts start racing, ask yourself, is this useful right now? If not, simply acknowledge the thought and let it pass. This approach builds a habit of mindful awareness rather than impulsive reactivity. Over time, your mind learns to rest on its own, knowing that it doesn't always have to be in overdrive. Meditation helps train this skill by creating a space where thoughts naturally settle, allowing the mind to recharge rather than exhaust itself through relentless activity. Mastery without attachment also means not getting caught up in whether your mind is peaceful or chaotic. Sometimes the mind will be a whirlwind of thoughts, and other times it will be serenely quiet. Both are part of the human experience. The key is not to judge or resist, but to allow whatever arises to simply be. When you stop demanding that your mind be a certain way, it responds with a natural calmness. It's like letting a restless animal find its own way to settle down rather than forcing it into submission. Ultimately, mind mastery is about cultivating an effortless coexistence with your thoughts, letting them be present without letting them dictate your state of being. It's not about suppressing or denying thoughts, but seeing through their illusion of control. When a mind is needed, it works efficiently and creatively. When not, it remains quiet, resting like a dormant volcano. This balanced approach leads to a profound sense of peace, where thought no longer overshadows presence. It's not the end of thought, but the end of identification with it. And as this realization deepens, the mind becomes an ally rather than an adversary, serving your journey without steering it. Conclusion: are you ready to make that change? Now that you've discovered how to observe rather than control, it's time to put this knowledge into action. The real question is, how long will you keep fighting your mind? How much longer will you believe that peace only comes from forcing silence upon yourself? Instead of wrestling with your thoughts, let them be. Start observing them, and notice how they naturally come and go, like clouds passing through an endless sky. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes to navigate life with a calm mind, unburdened by the chaos of constant thought. But here's the challenge. Will you take the first step? Will you commit to sitting quietly, witnessing your thoughts without getting caught up in them? The path is simple, yet it requires courage. It requires the courage to step back and stop trying to control what you can't. This shift in perspective isn't just a mental exercise. It's a lifestyle change that can lead to profound transformation. Every moment spent observing without judgment brings you closer to the inner peace you've been searching for. So, are you ready to make that change? To stop fighting your mind and start witnessing it with clarity and calm? If you're ready to embrace this, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, and let's continue this journey of self-discovery together. It's time to stop struggling and start thriving in the stillness. The peace you seek is already within you, waiting to be uncovered.